Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, and we're a state agency of the Department of Arkansas Heritage. I want to welcome you all to the Sandwiching in History tour of the Matthews-Clauson-McCullough House. And what sandwiching in history is, I see lots of new faces, so I feel the need to explain this just so you know what we're doing. If you didn't get one of these brochures, you can grab one whenever you come up here on the porch before you go inside the house. It's got the whole schedule for 2015. And in a nutshell, we just visit a different historic property in Central Arkansas once a month. And you show up at noon, usually on the first Friday, but it'll tell you for sure the dates in this brochure. And you'll hear me tell about the history and architecture of each property, and then you get to go inside for a tour. It's all free, open to the public, and you're in and out in an hour, okay?
And there's a Saturday tour on the back.
And there are Saturday tours on the back called Walks Through History, and Charles, thanks. Also, those are all free and open to the public as well, and we visit different historic downtowns or historic districts around the state. I think some of those folks have had a chance to get up here, so I'm going to go ahead and start. But first of all, I want to do a couple thank yous before I get into the history of the property. I really want to thank Murray Clark. Where's Murray? Where? Okay, over here, Murray Clark, and also his mother, Nancy Clark. Nancy's right here, down in front, and Mark Rushing, I see Mark right here on this side, for allowing us to come in and tour the house today. This is their family home. And Murray has worked very hard, I know some of the other ones have too. Brett has worked very hard, but he's not here today, to get the house ready for y'all to come in. And Nancy spent her teenage and young adult years living here in this house, and her parents lived in the house from 1950 until either both of their deaths. Her mother's in '84 and her father's in 2006. And I also want to thank Tom Eubanks. Is Tom here today? I don't know if Tom made it today. Oh, he's sick. Okay. But I'll talk a little bit about Tom throughout my speech. His father, C.C. Eubanks, built houses for Justin Matthews for about 20 years, and he worked on the construction of this house, and Tom just lives right up the road, and he was kind enough to let me interview him about this house and tell me some good stuff. And finally, I want to thank Sherwood Mayor Virginia Hillman. Is Virginia here? Is Mayor Hillman here somewhere and I didn't see her? Okay, we just want to recognize her, and also Daryl Brown. I know Daryl is here. I see him. The shades on. Of the Sherwood History and Heritage Committee, I want to thank those two for their interest in this house. If you're an architect, this tour is worth 1 hour of HSW continuing education credit through the American Institute of Architects, and you can see me after the tour if you're interested in that. The Matthews-Clauson-McCullough House was built about 1927 by real estate developer Justin Matthews. The nearly 5,000 square foot home was designed using a combination of the Tudor Revival and the Craftsman styles of architecture. It was built to be a, quote, close-in country estate in the Pope Place edition of Sylvan Hills. And if you didn't receive one, I passed out about 50, so I know I didn't have enough. 50 copies of the plat of the Pope Place edition. I see somebody holding one up back there. So if you didn't get one, see if one of your neighbors has it so you can look at it as well. Present-day Sherwood began as a rural community called Sylvan Hills. Real estate developer Justin Matthews Sr. organized two firms in the 1920s to develop Park Hill and Sylvan Hills. Whoa. The Justin Matthews Company built houses, and Metropolitan Trust Company sold and financed them. Matthews built the Sylvan Hills Golf Course in 1927 to provide upscale recreational opportunities for the residents of Park Hill. He intended to build modest homes near the golf course in Sylvan Hills, as well as larger country estates farther to the north. In 1926, Justin Matthews and his wife, Agnes Summers Matthews, platted a residential addition in Sylvan Hills to the east of the Batesville Cutoff Road, which is now Kellogg Acres Road, and you can see that labeled Batesville Cutoff if you have one of those old plat maps. The addition was named Pope Place in honor of John Pope, the third territorial governor of Arkansas. According to the Bill of Assurance filed in the Pulaski County Clerk's Office, Matthews admired John Pope because he was the first governor to actually move his family to Arkansas Territory, which had a reputation for being a very dangerous place. Pope worked diligently to encourage others to migrate to Arkansas Territory and to rid the territory of its bad reputation. Although Arkansas had not yet achieved statehood, in 1833, Governor Pope commissioned the design of the state capitol building at Little Rock, which is now known as the Old State House. Justin Matthews also designated land throughout the Pope Place addition for use as a public park, and you can see that clearly on the plat map as well. Miller Park, as it was called, and then Miller Road, this main road through the addition, were named for Major Charles H. Miller, who, quote, was an engineer who did much toward the development of Arkansas and who lost his life with the sinking of the government steamer Norman, which sank in the Mississippi River near Memphis on May 8, 1925. And Justin Matthews spelled all this out in the Bill of Assurance for this edition whenever he platted it. Pope Place contained 81 residential lots. However, the Justin Matthews Company only built 2 houses out here before the Great Depression stalled development. The houses today located at 10226, this one, and 10013 Miller Road, which is the Dutch Colonial House further down the road, were the only homes in the Pope Place addition until at least the mid-1950s. The Metropolitan Trust Company replatted Block 2 of the Pope Place addition in 1955, and if you drive out going this way east on Miller Road, you'll see some ranch-style homes from that time period mixed in with some new houses. Sherwood was incorporated as a town on April 22nd, 1948. According to a special census taken in September of 48, Sherwood had an all-white population of 714. The city of Sherwood has grown significantly in both area and population since that time. The Miller Road property where we are today was annexed by Sherwood in 1997. And now I'm going to tell you about the history, the ownership history of this property and of this house. In January 1928, Eloise Leno Maloney financed the house on Lot A of Block 1 in the Pope Place addition, or this house, through Metropolitan Trust Company. Mrs. Maloney paid $2,000 cash toward a total purchase price of $7,500. However, and that wasn't nothing for a house back then. That was a lot of money for a house. However, John and Eloise Maloney did not use this Miller Road property as their primary residence. According to Little Rock city directories from the late 1920s, the Maloneys lived in the Abelese Apartments at 1409 Louisiana Street in Little Rock. More than likely, the Miller Road house, this house, was really truly a country estate for the Maloneys, or a weekend getaway of some sort for them. It wasn't where they lived all the time. But what they did, what did the Maloneys do? John S. Maloney served as Pulaski County Chancery Clerk from 1909 to 1915. He was Pulaski County Circuit Clerk 1916 and 17, and he was the State Insurance Commissioner from 1927 to 28. He was also president of an insurance company called Maloney and Salmson Insurance. John Maloney died in 1929. Eloise Maloney then moved in with her brother, Harold Lenow, who lived at 2322 Beechwood in Little Rock, which is today right on the Country Club of Little Rock Golf Course. Got some wind. I'm going to try to turn this way a little bit. And Eloise later remarried to a man named James L. Murphy, and Eloise was a well-known interior decorator and designer. Eloise Maloney Murphy may have lost the Miller Road property shortly after her first husband's death in 1929, because that event, coupled with the onset of the Great Depression, undoubtedly caused her financial problems. But I couldn't find a record of what year the property went out of her name. Whatever the case, the next deed record for this house dates to August of 1932. Metropolitan Trust Company sold 4 pieces of property, including this house and the Dutch Colonial House further down Miller Road, to O.J. Fuller for $1. Well, something is, that's not really the case. More than likely, there was, a trade for some kind of work going on there, because O.J. Fuller, was a foreman for a concrete construction company. So he probably did some kind of paving projects or other concrete work for Justin Matthews, and that was the trade. That was his compensation, was that real estate. Regardless, the Fullers didn't hang on to this property very long either. They had it for about 7 months, and then Mr. Fuller and his wife returned the property to Metropolitan Trust Company. That was in March 1933. So Metropolitan Trust Company couldn't find a buyer for the house during the 1930s, so it was used as a rental property. And now comes the fun story. And I can neither confirm nor deny this story, but, I mean, it could be true. According to Tom Eubanks, who I mentioned earlier, whose father, Cletus Clinton, C.C. Eubanks, built houses for Justin Matthews for all that time, about 20 years, and he lived at this time of the story at the corner of Highway 5, or now 107, and Woodruff Avenue. One of the renters that lived in this house had an illegal moonshine operation in the attic. And the revenue agents found out about it and came to raid the house. Well, C.C. Eubanks followed the revenuers to Miller Road and watched as they poured barrels of liquor out through the windows over here on the west side of the house. And the moonshiners, also according to the story, the moonshiners kept hogs in pens back here to the northwest of the house to eat the corn mash after it was used in the liquor making process. And after the moonshiners were arrested, the revenue agents let the hogs loose, and the pigs got drunk off the swill that had been poured out over here next to the house and went staggering down the hill where they ran into the area where the old Kellogg mine used to be, north of here. That's the story, okay? Again, I can neither confirm nor deny that story, and I don't know exactly what time period we're talking, if we're talking late 20s, if we're talking early 30s, or sometime after, you know, Prohibition ended in 33, what exactly time period was going on. Then the next occupants of the house, so it was leased for several years during the 30s and early 40s. In December of 1944, the home was purchased by Donald B. Clauson and his wife, Evelyn, for $5,500. Donald Clauson was a coach at Westside Junior High School in Little Rock, and his wife, Evelyn, was a teacher at Pulaski Heights Junior High. According to the 1940 census, the Clauson household consisted of 2 sons, Donald B. Clauson Jr. and Norman S. Clauson. Also, Evelyn Clauson's parents lived with them. Their names were Oscar and O'Fallon Staley, and they had a lodger or a boarder in their home named Lloyd Mabry. And so this may explain why they decided to move to Sylvan Hills. They may have needed more space. Interestingly, though, Donald and Evelyn Clauson continued to work in downtown Little Rock at their jobs, even after they moved out here to Sylvan Hills. By the late 1940s, Donald was a principal of an elementary school in Little Rock. And interestingly also, the Clauson boys, I know at least Donald B. Jr. and Norman's initials are stamped in the concrete over here. There's a little set of concrete steps that goes down on the west side of the house. If you look closely, you can see their initials stamped in the steps over there. So the Clauson family remained here at this house until December of 1950, when they sold the house to Murray and Martha McCullough. The McCullough family moved to Little Rock in 1938 from South Bend, Indiana, and they first lived in a house at 2711 South Tyler Street in Little Rock. By 1950, the McCullough family had grown to include 7 children, and they needed more space for sure. Murray McCullough also enjoyed horseback riding, and a home in the country was ideal for that. The McCullough family has owned this property since 1950. Murray Gray McCullough was born on August 15, 1908 at Plymouth, Indiana, to Russell McCullough and Maud Rupert McCullough. He grew up at Garrett, Indiana, and was a talented violinist and athlete. His grandfather, John Rupert, raised Morgan horses, and his grandfather was a close friend of the Studebaker family, owners of the Studebaker Buggy Works, and later generations of the Studebaker family would produce Studebaker automobiles. During his high school and college years, Murray played violin in a dance band. They performed in the summertime at resorts on Lake Wawasee in Indiana to make a little spending money. Murray began his college career at Manchester College in Manchester, Indiana, and later transferred to the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. He studied medicine but dropped out of college after his junior year to take a job with a pharmaceutical company. Because, you see, it was about 1930, Great Depression, and he got that job offer, he couldn't pass it up, so he quit school. While attending the University of Illinois, Murray met a fellow student named Martha May Hatch, and the two later married. Murray and Martha McCullough moved to South Bend, Indiana, where they started their own trucking company called the Overnight Express. They owned a fleet of trucks and transported a lot of produce. But winters were very harsh in South Bend, and Murray got tired of dealing with the road conditions and all the maintenance issues with the trucks in the cold weather. So he bid on a job in a warmer place, Little Rock, Arkansas. In 1938, he was hired to serve as the screen wagon mail contractor for the U.S. Postal Service at Little Rock. The McCullough family brought their fleet of trucks to Little Rock, and Murray hired about 12 men to drive for him. The trucks transported mail from the main post office to different train stations, bus stations, other area post offices, the airport, and then vice versa.
Did they use refrigerated trailers?
Refrigerated trailers? They were transporting mail. I don't know. I don't think so. The drivers, so this was not a traditional mail route. They were not your mail carriers. They were transporting big loads of mail back and forth. While the McCulloughs lived at 2711 South Tyler, they were instrumental in the construction of the current Oak Forest United Methodist Church building on Fair Park Boulevard. During World War II, Murray worked as a chemist at the Maumelle Ordnance Works. After the war, he returned to his mail contracting job full-time. About 1950, Murray took a job with Winthrop Laboratories as a pharmaceutical sales rep. He was a natural salesman, and he was very interested in medicine because he had studied it in college. Nancy McCullough Clark remembered neighbors coming over to the house quite often to have their ailments diagnosed by her father. Murray McCullough worked for Winthrop for about 30 years and was consistently among the top 3 in sales nationally. Even after he retired, he was invited to come back and speak at a national conference where he told the young salesmen how to sell. Martha May Hatch McCullough was born on March 14, 1908, at Hammond, Indiana, to Walter Raymond Hatch and May Drury Lawrence Hatch. Martha attended the University of Illinois and worked as a society editor for the Champaign-Urbana News. She was an environmentalist and was active in many civic and volunteer projects, a trait that she passed along to her daughter, Nancy, who has been involved with environmental advocacy efforts here in Pulaski County. Murray and Martha McCullough had 7 children, 4 born in South Bend and 3 born in Little Rock. We have Nancy, Bruce, Kent, Andrew, Charlotte, John, and Marcia May, or May Apple McCullough. Murray McCullough's love for horses began whenever he was a child at his grandfather's farm and lasted his entire lifetime. He and his children went horseback riding several times each week. When I asked Tom Eubanks about Murray and Martha McCullough, he said, quote, "They danced together beautifully. They looked so graceful and nice as a couple. Murray was a gentleman and just a very nice person, and he loved to ride horses." Martha died on April 11, 1984, at the age of 76, and Murray remained in the home with his son John, who was his caretaker, until his death house to his son John. John had a small business supplying cured hickory wood to local barbecue restaurants, and he loved to be outdoors and often had his dogs, Pal and Sammy, out for long walks. And John McCullough died on May 29, 2014, at age 70. John McCullough left the property to his nephews, Murray Clark, Brett Clark, and Mark Rushing, and as you all know, it's currently for sale. Now briefly about the architecture, and I'm almost done. You guys doing okay? Okay. Like many houses built by the Justin Matthews Company during the 1920s, this house was designed in the Tudor Revival style of architecture. The Tudor Revival style is loosely based on a variety of early English building traditions. The house also incorporated details from the contemporaneous craftsman houses. Although this house lacks the trademark, extremely steeply pitched front cross gable and the large chimney on the front facade, it lacks those things. It still leans toward the Tudor Revival style. Characteristics of the style on this house include this front-facing cross gable over here with the false half timbering, that detail with the stucco and wood in the gable end. The use of stone behind me around the front door. The front door is also set in a Tudor arch. You can see that behind me. A prominent chimney on the east side of the house over here. Banks of casement windows throughout, and the grouping right here of leaded glass windows with diamond-shaped panes. However, there are also some craftsman characteristics. The half timbering, the casement windows, and the mixture of materials overall are craftsman characteristics. On the interior, be sure to notice the grand staircase. It's beautiful. The two sets of French doors downstairs, there's one set upstairs, and the brick mantle in here. And if you haven't already noticed, I don't know how you couldn't have, the rock wall on the property over here, you can see it going on this side too. Looks just like the rock walls that you see all over Park Hill and Lakewood. It too was built by the Justin Matthews Company. A few more little details that I thought were interesting. When the McCullough family moved out to Sylvan Hills, Nancy was a junior in high school, and so she and her brother Bruce wanted to finish high school at Little Rock High. They drove all the way to Little Rock Central High School from here every day to go to school, and would drop off the siblings on the way as they got closer to town. And when I asked Nancy what she remembered most about growing up in this house, she talked about how much she enjoyed living in the country. She loved the woods, the sounds of the owls at night, and the whippoorwills in the springtime. And she also had fond memories of taking walks on the road and watching the fireplace at night. The house is almost 5,000 square feet. It has a floored attic, a full basement, has a two-car garage that's accessed back this way on the north side of the house to drive around back to get to that. The back porch, you can tell it, but if you walk around and look, the back porch is not original to the house. It's got 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, plus living, dining, kitchen, breakfast room, and an office. And when you walk upstairs, the bedrooms right there at the top of the stairs on this side, on the east side, those were the girls' rooms. And then Murray and Martha McCullough's room is on the north side that looks out, that has the great view to the north. And then the boys' rooms were over here on the west side. The 2 bedrooms at the top of the stairs, these over here that were the girls' rooms, those are not original to the home's construction. Originally, this huge bank of casement windows here was completely undivided, and you could go inside the living room and look straight up and see all the way to the top of the second floor originally. And you can tell whenever you go upstairs and look in these bedrooms up here that the floor of that room cuts right through the middle of those windows. And you can also see this beautiful exposed beams, wood beams, in those upstairs rooms that would have originally been visible from the living room downstairs. But that was done before the McCulloughs purchased the house in 1950. Also, most of the antique furniture in the house is from Martha McCullough's family. Her grandfather owned 2 furniture stores. If anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to ask them in just a second, or you can find me anytime and ask me. Our next tour is March 6th at the old U.S. Post Office and Courthouse, what's now the Bankruptcy Courthouse, downtown Little Rock. That'll be a great tour at 300 West 2nd Street on March 6th at noon. Does anybody have questions for me right now while everything's kind of quiet?
What's the asking price for the house?
She asked what the asking price is for the house. It's $299. Oh, and also, they're going to have an estate sale March 6, 7, 8. How much land comes with it? Is it 1.27? Yes. 1.27 acres.